أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Ikram al-Muslim, Rights of Muslims. Hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Anas radiallahu anhu narrates that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "If anyone brings up two girls, he and I will be together in paradise, like these two fingers," pointing with these two fingers. Tirmizi. Anas radiallahu anhu narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "If anyone brings up two girls, he and I will be together in paradise like these two fingers," pointing with his two fingers. Tirmizi. Aisha radiallahu anha narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Whosoever assumed the responsibility of managing the affair of his daughters and treated them well, then these daughters will become shield for him from the fire." Bukhari. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiallahu anhu narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "He who had 3 daughters or 3 sisters, or 2 daughters or 2 sisters, and he treated them well and feared Allah towards them, for him is paradise." Tirmizi. Ayyub rahimahullah, on the authority of his father, who from his grandfather narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "No father gives his son any gift better than good education. No father gives his son any gift better than good education." Tirmizi. Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "If anyone has a baby girl and he neither buries her alive nor slights her, nor prefers his son over her, then Allah because of her will send him to paradise." Mustadrak Hakim. Nu'man ibn Bashir radiallahu anhuma narrates that my father brought me to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, "Verily, I have gifted this son of mine a slave." He asked, "Have you given all your sons the same?" My father replied, "No." He, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, "Then take the slave back." Bukhari. Note: this hadith implies that all the children should be treated equally in giving a gift. Abu Sa'id and Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "He who has a son born to him should give him a good name and a good upbringing, and when he reaches puberty, he marries him. If he does not marry him when he reaches puberty, and if the son commits a sin, then indeed its guilt rests upon his father." Bayhaqi. Aisha radiallahu anha narrates that a villager came to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam and said, "Do you kiss your children, whereas we do not kiss them?" Then Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "I cannot put mercy in your heart when Allah has taken it away from you." Bukhari. Abu Huraira radiallahu anhu narrates that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "Give presents to one another, for a present removes hatred from the breast of and a woman should not despise a gift from her neighbor, even if it be a portion of a goat's hoof." Tirmizi. Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "None of you should consider any good deed insignificant. If you are unable to perform any good deed, then at least meet your brother cheerfully. This is also a good deed. If you buy meat or cook in a pot, then increase its gravy and give some of it to your neighbor." Tirmizi. Abu Huraira radiallahu anhu narrates that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "He will not enter paradise whose neighbor feels unsafe from his injurious conduct." He will not enter paradise whose neighbor feels unsafe from his injurious conduct. Muslim. Abu Huraira radiallahu anhu narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "He who believes in Allah and the day of resurrection should honor his neighbor." Sahaba asked, "O Rasulullah, what are the rights of a neighbor?" He replied, "If he asks you for something, give it to him. If he needs your help, help him. If he asks for a loan, lend it to him. If he invites you, accept his invitation. If he is sick, visit him. If he dies, follow his bier. If some problem befalls him, comfort him. Do not trouble him with the smell of cooking unless you send some of it to him. Do not raise your house above his, which may obstruct his ventilation, except by his permission. Targheeb. Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu narrates that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "He is not a believer who eats to his fill while his neighbor is hungry. He is not a believer who eats to his fill while his neighbor is hungry." Tabrani, Abu Ya'la, Majma'uz Zawaid. Abu Huraira radiallahu anhu narrates that a man said, "O Rasulullah, indeed such and such a woman has a reputation for engaging in salah, saum and sadaqah to a great extent, but she is sharp-tongued with her neighbors." He replied, "She is in the fire." Then that person said, "O Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, such and such a woman has a reputation for engaging in saum, sadaqah and salah to a small extent. Indeed, her sadaqah is just a few pieces of cheese, but she does not hurt her neighbors with her tongue." He said, "She is in paradise." Musnad Ahmad. Abu Huraira radiallahu anhu narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "Who will learn these words from me, act upon them, or teach these to others? Who will act upon them?" Abu Huraira radiallahu anhu said, "O Rasulullah, I will do that." He held my hand and counting 5 characteristics, he said, 1. Avoid the forbidden. You will become the greatest worshipper. 2. Be satisfied with what Allah has granted you, and you will be the richest of men. 3. Be kind to your neighbor. You will be a true believer. 4. Choose for others what you like for yourself, and you will be a Muslim. 5. And do not laugh excessively, for excessive laughter deadens the heart. Tirmizi. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu narrates that a man asked, "O Rasulullah, how can I know when I do good and when I do bad?" Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam replied, "When you hear your neighbor say, 'Verily you have done good,' then indeed you have done good. And when you hear them say, 'Verily you have done bad,' indeed you have done bad." Tabrani, Majma'uz Zawaid. Abdul Rahman ibn Abi Qurad radiallahu anhu narrates that one day Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam performed wudu. The Sahaba began to wipe themselves with water he had used. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam asked them, "What induces you to do this?" They replied, "For the love of Allah and His Messenger." Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "If anyone likes to love Allah and His Messenger, and also likes Allah and His Messenger love him, then he should speak the truth whenever he speaks, and when he is entrusted with something, he must return it, and should treat his neighbors well." Bayhaqi, Mishkat. Aisha radiallahu anha narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "Jibreel alayhi salam continuously kept advising me about the rights of a neighbor until I thought that undoubtedly he would make him an heir." Bukhari. Uqba ibn Amir radiallahu anhu narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "The first pair of adversaries on the day of resurrection will be 2 neighbors. The first pair of adversaries on the day of resurrection will be 2 neighbors." Musnad Ahmad, Majma'uz Zawaid. Sa'ad radiallahu anhu narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "No one who intends evil for the people of Medina except that Allah will melt him in the fire, like the melting of lead or the dissolving of salt in water." Jabir ibn Abdullah radiallahu anhuma narrates that I heard Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam saying, "He who frightens the residents of Medina frightens me. He who frightens the residents of Medina frightens me." Musnad Ahmad, Majma'uz Zawaid. Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "He who can die in Medina, let him die there. Verily, I shall intercede for those who die there and are buried there." Ibn Hibban. No. The scholars of Islam have explained that this is a special intercession, as Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam's intercession will generally be for all Muslims. Who can die in Medina, let him die there, means that he should reside there till his last. Abu Huraira radiallahu anhu narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "No one amongst my ummah who will endure the hardship and rigor of Medina without my being an intercessor or witness on his behalf on the day of resurrection." Muslim. Sahel radiallahu anhu narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "I and the one who brings up an orphan will be like in paradise." And he pointed his forefinger and middle finger with a slight gap between them. Bukhari. Amr ibn Malik al-Qushayri radiallahu anhu narrates, "I heard Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying, he who takes an orphan under his care, whose parents were Muslims, and let him share his meals until Allah freed his child from his care, paradise will be due for him." Musnad Ahmad, Tabrani, Majma'u Zawaid. Auf bin Malik al-Ajja'i radiallahu anhu narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "I and that woman whose cheeks have darkened from the hardship of upbringing her children will be like these two on the day of resurrection." The narrator of the hadith, Yazid rahimahullah, pointed with the middle and his forefinger. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, explaining her circumstances, said, "A woman, a rank and beauty, who became a widow and then patiently devoted herself to her orphan children for upbringing them till they reached the age of puberty or died." Abu Dawood. Abu Musa al-Ashari radiallahu anhu narrates that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Not an orphan sits for eating in the utensils of a people except that shaitan cannot come near their utensils." Not an orphan sits for eating in the utensils of a people except that shaitan cannot come near the utensils. Tabrani. Abu Huraira radiallahu anhu narrates that a man complained to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam of his hard-heartedness. He said, "Pass an affectionate hand over the orphan's head and feed the poor." Pass an affectionate hand over the orphan's head and feed the poor. Musnad Ahmad, Majma'u Zawaid. Safwan ibn Sulaim radiallahu anhu narrates that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "He who strives to serve a widow and the poor is like the one who struggles in the path of Allah, or like the one who fasts by day and stands by salah at night." Bukhari. Aisha radiallahu anha narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "The best amongst you is he who is most kind to his family, and I am the kindest amongst you to my family." Ibn Hibban. Aisha radiallahu anha narrates that an old woman came to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam when he was with me. He asked her, "Who are you?" She said, "I am Jusama Madaniya." He asked, "How are you? How have you been after our coming to Medina?" She replied, "May my parents be sacrificed for you. Everything is well." When she went away, I asked, "O Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, you have given so much attention to this old woman." He replied, "This woman used to come to us in the lifetime of Khadija. Verily, paying regard for an old acquaintance is a sign of Iman." Mustadrak Hakim, Isaba. Abu Huraira radiallahu anhu narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "A believer must not hate his believing wife. If he dislikes one of her habits, he would indeed like her other habit." Muslim. No. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam gave a brief principle of good living. If people have some faults, then for sure they also have virtues in them. Humans are a combination of faults and virtues, so one should ignore the faults and focus on the virtues. Tarjuman as-Sunnah. Qais ibn Sa'd radiallahu anhu narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "If I were to order anyone to prostrate to another, I would order a woman to prostrate before her husband for the right that Allah has entrusted upon women to their husbands." Abu Dawood. Salama radiallahu anha narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "Any woman who died while her husband was pleased with her will enter paradise." Any woman who died while her husband was pleased with her, will enter paradise. Tirmidhi. Ahwas radiallahu anhu narrates, I heard Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam saying, listen carefully, treat women kindly. Indeed, they are like captives in your hands. You do not have any rights over them other than being good to them, except that when they are guilty of open indecency. If they do so, abandon their beds, give up sleeping with them, but live in the house, and give them a mild punishment. If they are obedient to you, do not try to find excuse against them. Listen carefully. Verily, you have rights over your wives, and they have rights over you. Your right is that they should not permit anyone you dislike to come to your beds or enter your house. Listen carefully. Women's rights over you are that you should treat them well in the matter of food and clothing. Tirmidhi. Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, pay the laborer his wages before his sweat dries. Pay the laborer his wages before his sweat dries. Ibn Majah. Subhanallahi wa bihamdihi, subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Subhanaka rabbil izzati amma yasifun, wa salamun ala al-mursaleen, walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, birahmatika ya arhamar rahimin, la ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah.